Spare the rod and spoil the child. Who's older, God or government? When you think about that, and we're supposed to be Americans, right? So this is America. So, in America, look at American history. We decided to rebel. We decided to kick in the doors of people's homes and mutilate their children in front of them and tar and feather them and leave them to die. Why? Because we're Americans. That's why. So, what do? We say, hey, we're free. Why are we free? Because at that time, people were saying that we were Christians. And as Christians, what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to obey the Bible. What does the Bible tell us to do? Certain things. It says you're supposed to work. Work. When you look that up in the Bible, it talks about a man is supposed to receive pay for his work. And the pay he's supposed to receive is supposed to support him and his tribe. So a man is supposed to work to support him and his tribe. You can all go feminazi and all that shit and say man, woman, whatever. A person, alright? A creature, a human, an intelligent being that can acknowledge itself and its surroundings and understand. And if it can't understand, then it's not an intelligent being, or it's not a person, it's just a wild creature, and, you know, even the Bible says you can kill them too. You're supposed to. So anyways, the Bible says you're only supposed to pay 1% in taxes. 1%, yo! So, look at that. 1%. 1 motherfucking cent. So the government was like, oh yeah, that's 1% per person, or for God, right? Per person. Yeah. So then, that's what it was, up until, I guess you could say, almost the Renaissance. So after the Renaissance, a whole bunch of more evil stuff happened. So anyways, in America, we were paying 2% because we were a colony. They were like, it's 1% for God, 2%, another percent for country. So we were like, yo, dude, that's almost ungodly. That's forbidden. That's against the Bible. We're not supposed to do that. We're people of God. So we let it slide. And then they went to 3%. And that's when we revolution, saying you are an unholy creature of damnation if you expect a human, a person, a man, a woman, a free creature of existence. And that right there, free, right? When you add slaves. And even the Bible, when you really read it, you're not supposed to have slaves. We'll get to that later. But the government thinks we're slaves because the government is a servant of Satan, and Satan is a slave to damnation. Because when you look at Satan, Satan is the greatest servant ever created as Lucifer, then claimed authority over the master, or claimed authority as the master, and then became Satan and damned to hell. So they say. There's another one about that when you read the book of Revelation. But anyways, the government is a servant. It exists off taxation. The fish of other people. It does not provide its own fish, even though it steals fishes from others and their fishing boats, then claims it as their own property, and then makes laws to protect their fishing capability, so they control all fishing capability. So therefore, everyone in all reality has to be reliant on the government to fish. That is Satan, motherfucker. Fuck you! So anyways, right there, that's bullshit. So, with that said, everyone back in the day knew that as Americans. And then the government was like, whatever. I don't even know how to put it. They're like, they just try to enforce it on people. They didn't have the propaganda in the media and the church like they do now to deceive, to enforce it. So anyways, you get this government who's saying, hey, not only are you paying 2% taxes, which is double of what divine creation requires, There's an ambulance driving by. Yeah, so anyways, the Bible's like, hey, you pay 1%, and the government's like, yo, you gotta pay 2%. You have to pay double of what divine existence or creation, or, yeah, existence in general would require you, or divine existence, because they're going off the Bible. So yeah, 1%. That's all God requires you to pay. So if you're saying, hey, I'm a part of God, and I believe in God, and all this shit, then all you have to do is pay 1% of your life per year in taxes. So, the government was like, yo, we also get a percent. So then it became 2% of your life. And then in America, the government tried to charge us 3%. And we were like, yo, you're an unholy demon, and we will smite you. And if you honestly think you can get away with this, and think that you're associated with humanity, we will disregard all humanity. Because if you think that you could come against a human and require a human to pay more than 1% in taxes, you are committing an inhumane act. So, we treated them with this humanity. We told them this, plain and simple. We will not tolerate your dishumanity against us that you call taxation, which you believe is a requirement, which you are trying to program, brainwash, condition, COINTELPRO reality into thinking it's okay to pay more than 1% in taxes. So, back then there were real people and real humans who worshipped what they called the one true God, the real God. And the real God said, no, 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 no. Me, no government. Government and Satan. Satan is government. There's God, and then there's government. They are not the same. Plain and simple. There is air, and there is fire. You cannot have fire without air. That's the way God put it. Alright? The government cannot exist without God. God created people, then people created government. That's what people forgot. And that's what the government remembers, and the government does everything it can to harm innocence and reality and honor and justice to maintain its parasite existence. Plain and simple, the government is a demonic parasite that is the enemy of everything that is holy, just, and true. That is divine truth. So, plain and simple. I keep saying that word, plain and simple, but it's not. I understand it plain and simple, and I have to try to describe it in a manner with plain and simple words without being articulate, esoteric, and confounded rhetoric. Because I know I use smarty pants words that don't always sound right. Hello, how are you? Doing alright. So, we as Americans were like, hey, we'll pay 2% in taxes even though we know it's an unholy, unjust, ungodly, dishonorable, unhumane act. But we will go with it specifically because we care from where we came. And at the time it was England. So we gave in to our captor due to Stockholm Syndrome. That's what we call it now. That's where 2% in taxation came from. Stockholm Syndrome. Plain and simple. We were like, oh, what do we do? I'm from here. I love here. This is part of my culture. And there's this government, not a child, not a god, a government that is going astray, that is going wrong. And the only way, to put it straight, is to punish it. And this government claims authority, so the only way to punish authority is to get rid of it. Because it will always claim authority. Look at Napoleon. Plain and simple. They had to poison him. That's that. Napoleon was like, yo, dude, I got the right. I know this. I'm right. I can handle this. And it was one government against another, plain and simple. That's how it is. And then one government was like, oh, snap. What do we do? They really didn't get rid of him. They just put him away. And then he came back again. So then what did they do? They got rid of him for good by allegedly poisoning him. Or whoever knows the truth. All right? But that's how it is. That's the way the cookie crumbles. And the The government knows this. But the thing is, they can't put it away all the time because they feed off of it. They have to have it there so that way they can perpetuate themselves. Can you understand that? That's why at first they didn't get rid of Napoleon permanently. They just put him aside. Like, put him away over there. Because they always need that problem, knowing that it could come back, knowing that there's still the residual, whether you call it co-conspirators, complicitors, allies, patriots, Confederates, whatever that word of association that says, hey, these people were there during the time it happened, so therefore, even though you take out the organizing logistical mechanism of command, you still have everything else. Like a scorpion will still have its legs and its stinger. If you chop off its head, it might still be able to run around, or slice its head. It doesn't have a head. It's built in. But yeah. So anyways, that's what damnation, evil, the government needs. Is this perpetuation. So that way it can always say, hey, you need me. Hold on to this. I helped you. We fought together. This is where we came from. And that's where the 2% taxes come from. Right there. To say, hey, this is your flag, this is your honor, shit's not going right. And you want to know what? We all need to get together and pitch in a little more. Because the people in charge, the democracy, the aristocracy, the dynasty of whatever, the Caesar, the Pope, needs money to help you. This person who's living in a palace, who doesn't work, who eats luxuriously, and has sway further than you can imagine, and that you've ever traveled, needs you to work more, work harder, for less. So somehow, reality will get better for you. Really? How is reality supposed to get better for me if I work harder and work more and get less? Aren't I supposed to work less and get more? Because that is what the government is doing. But it's a trick, because they're thinking, hey, I can make these people think I'm working. And if I don't work out, I just need more money. And if they give me more money, it will eventually work. And that's the trick of Satan. You just have to keep giving in more and more and more to damnation, to darkness, and Satan, thinking eventually it will get better. I just have to keep working harder. If I work more and I work harder, I'm going to get something more. That's like an hourly wage, like minimum wage. If I work 40 hours a week, I still make nothing. But I need more money to survive in a capitalist society. So what do people think? Oh, work more. So if I have more hours of work, then I should have more hours of pay. But with taxation, that really doesn't matter, because with more hours of work comes more hours of taxation. So then you still have nothing. And then you'll say, well, hey, how about I get paid more per hour? And that way I can even work less hours and get paid more. And that is what the government does. But the government will tell you, no, that's not right. That's against the Bible. A man's got to work. Well, remember, in the Bible, a man only worked for 3 months out of the year. And it was 5 hours a day, 3 to 4 days a week. Yeah, yo. You paid 1% in taxes. You worked 5 hours a day, 3 to 4 hours. Or, excuse me. You worked 5 hours a day, 3 to 4 days a week, 3 months out of the year, and you made enough money to survive comfortably as a person for the whole year. But now, here we are, and the majority of reality has to work more than double than times 4. Yeah, yo, 8 hours a day for the whole, for 5 days a week, 52 weeks in a year. If you only work 50, you get those 2 weeks off with no paid vacation. Still doesn't matter how you do the math. You're working 8 times as harder for less because you're not living comfortably. Think about that. A person could work on their own and just live and be free, and they'd still pay taxes and all that, and bam, they'd only have to work 3 months out of the year and live comfortably the rest of the year for an additional 9 months. Yeah, yo. But now people have to work all day long, all week long, every week of the year. And they don't even live comfortably. They are less than slaves. They are slave wage slaves. That's what you are when you make less than $200 an hour, because that's what a person used to make when you only had to pay 1% in taxes before corporations and government, which are the same. Like I said, you have corporations who have money, they get together, they buy out everything, they trick everyone with democracy and say, hey, let us control this for you. You vote for us, and then we'll take care of everything. And then they make these laws that support their commercial interest to say, hey, you need a license to do this. If you don't have this license, you can't do this. And if you want this license, you have to apply with us, and we have to authorize it for you. But if we think you're a competition, we're not going to let you have that license. We're only going to let us and our guild and our cartel and our monopoly and our good old boy system and circle of whoever control this industry. So you have to be one of us to have this license. So we're not going to let any independent contractor or small business owner have a license, because you have to be a large corporation. You can't be an LLC. And so therefore, we will control this. And anyone else who does not have this license, who is not us, we will punish as criminals. We will say it is a crime for them to engage in these acts without a license. So yeah, those two are the same, government and corporations. So then, a free person can't go out and work and just say, hey, I'm going to stand on this street corner in this market fair and work. Government's going to say, well, that's our street, that's our corner, that's our market fair, that's our money being put there to put that street and that fair in there. It's like, no, that's my money, that's our money, that's the people's money, not the government money. The government doesn't have money. The government cannot say it's their property. The government cannot say they spent their money. The government can't even say they earned money. They can't even say they have money. They shouldn't even be able to speak the word money, because that's my money. That's the people's money. That are human money. So if that money comes from me, then that is my street. That is my marketplace. That is my thoroughfare, my area where I am allowed to congregate, assemble, associate, and commit commerce as my choosing, without a permit, without a license. Me being there is my permit, me being there is my license. So, yeah, fuck you to the government. With that said, that's how that is. That's how laws come about. So that way people can control money and therefore control people and make people work harder for less so others get more money without doing anything. Plain and simple. The Bible knows this. That's why the Bible's like, you never pay more than 1% in taxes. Never. Anybody says you got to pay more than 1% in taxes, you kill them, they're Satan. So as Americans, we did that. And we told them, you come at us with 3% taxes, we'll kick in your door, we'll mutilate your children in front of you, crush in their faces with the back of hatchets, and then we'll tar and feather you and leave you to die. And that's what we did because we are Americans, and that's what we do as Americans to the government that disobeys. The government is our servant. It has no authority. It doesn't speak without spoken to. Plain and simple. If there are hungry people, then the government starves. If there are people who need clothing, then the government goes naked. If there are people who need housing, then the government can go to the wild. Plain and simple. That's the way it is. And that's the way God knows it. But Satan, also known as the government, will deceive everything it can because Satan and the government, which are the same, believes itself. Satan believes it's right, the government believes it's right, and they all believe they are a product of God and that what they're doing is God's will and that they're right and they're wrong. And God has always said this. That's why God doesn't love them. And during the revolution, when we were real Americans and we were real people and real human, and we stood up against this demon entity, the satanic parasite known as the government, we won. Because God helps those who help themselves. And every form of government is Satan. It is this parasitic demon, this servant claiming authority that does not provide its own fish. It will make others fish, and it will take their fish. And then it will get, what would you even call them? Dirt scum. And say, hey, dirt scum, I will give you a gun and a badge. Hey, pig, quit eating your shit. Come over here. Here is your badge. Here is your gun. Go steal their shit. I want their shit. I will give you a percentage of their shit. Pig. And if we run out of shit of other people's to thieve through taxation, you can go back to eating your own shit, pig. Because that's what pigs do. And there's nothing else left to do is eat their own shit. And that's where government comes from. It comes from a shit-eating pig that ran out of its own shit to eat, or just wanted a new flavor of shit and decided to eat other people's shit. Hello!
Howdy.
How are you?
You look like you're on a phone.
Ish.
Ish. Okay.
I'll leave you alone. So, yeah. As Americans, that's what we do when we're real Americans and we're real people and we're real humans. We tar and feather servants that disobey, servants that claim authority, and anyone who expects us to pay more than 2% in taxes. Because we'll say, hey, we'll give one to God and we'll give one to country. The government can go fuck itself and eat its own shit. Plain and simple. So yeah, 2% in taxes, 1% if you're just claiming a God, right? Because it's one God, 1% in taxes. Yeah, it's like that. But you have these demon parasites who are the enemy of everything holy, just, true, truth, liberty, justice for all. It's called the government, and it's a demon. It's the enemy of every innocent child that has ever existed. Even though it's supposed to be there to protect everything, it's actually not. I'm at 24 minutes. I'm about to hit 25 minutes. Let's see if I'll go to a half hour real quick, but I don't know. That'll be a different thing to say that a few bad apples spoil the barrel. Well, there's a difference between having a few bad apples in a barrel. It still spoils the barrel, right? And then having a barrel of spoiled apples with a few good ones. Because that's what the government is. It is a a spoiled barrel, a diseased barrel, a parasitic plague of unholy damnation that is the enemy of everything just, holy, and true. And it will present you with a shiny, beautiful apple, like an evil witch knocking on your door in a fairy tale, promising you safety, gold, riches, security, but it is in need of warmth, shelter, and comfort. It is in need of your money, your life, your sustenance. You do not have the right to say no, so you must let this evil demon into your home and warm itself from your work and your worth. And then it will do everything it can to force a poisoned apple down your throat. And then tell you to pay more in taxes to protect you. So, yeah. With that said, plain and simple, the government is the enemy. If you're a real American, what do? Do you work for the government? And if you are working for the government, what do you do after that? Look at Edward Snowden. He worked for the government. He designed the programs built to spy on people. But most people don't talk about that. Where somebody was like, hey, look at this. I'm not accusing, I'm confessing. And then the government comes out and says, hey, this guy is accusing us of wrongdoing, but we're accusing him of wrongdoing. Don't listen to him, he's a criminal. But if you look at it differently, he came out and said, hey, I'm confessing that I took part in these illegal activities. These are my co-conspirators, my confederates, my co-complicitors, my complicitors, my conspirators, my government. That's what he said. He came out and said that I committed illegal activities working for the government. I helped build and design programs for the government to spy on America. So he came out and said that he helped the servant spy on the master. And he used the master's fish to do it. He stole it. Because no one really says, hey, yes, I'll give my money to taxation. We all say no. If you have the option, would you say yes? Maybe. Right? Like if somebody came up to you and was like, hey, the school needs $50 to keep its lights on. Would you mind paying 3 cents on your bill today to help keep the lights on in the school? Because there's so many of us. It would only take 3 cents a person, right? This year. But look at that. The money he got, which he used to do everything he did, whether he committed a crime, committed patriotism, whether he refreshed the tree of liberty with the blood of patriots and tyrants, he got from someone else. The government will say he got from the government, and therefore he did wrong because he took the government's money and wronged the government. Well, where did the government get its money? It doesn't have a job, it doesn't produce, it doesn't engage in commerce, it's not allowed to. That's illegal, it's unlawful, it's unconstitutional in this country. So where does the government get its money from? It gets its money from me. The government gets its money from me. Plain and simple. And so someone who got money from me was spying on me and built things to spy on me and then confessed to it. And then the person who spied on me and built things who spied on me and confessed to it was accused of criminal activity by the entity that stole money from me and paid him to commit such activity. Is this the kettle calling the pot black? Obviously. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? Pointing the finger and saying, hey, you're committing criminal activity. I know this because you just confessed to committing criminal activity for me. So why isn't everyone else involved in that guilty of a crime? Plain and simple. Everyone, the Congress, the government, the Senate, the representatives, the Joint Chiefs, the presidents, all of them, every single cabinet, whatever, secretary, whatever, aide, assistant, whatever you can give another word for secretary, aide, or assistant, whatever. All of them. If any of them were associated, doesn't matter if they were aware, you can even throw in the Nuremberg principles of whatever, that you can say, hey, this is morally whatever, and I could have objected and walked off. Even though I could have lost my job, I could still say no. Because it comes down to, if you're going to be punished by them, you also have to think and remember that you could be punished by someone else. And that's what this government is saying. They're saying that too. And it's like, yeah, okay, well, you're trying to punish that guy for doing it, but you were doing it also, so why aren't you being punished? Oh, because you made laws that state you can. And you made them clandestine, covertly, without the attention of the master, without public awareness, so that we wouldn't know that you were ultimately breaking the law against us. So you made laws stating it was okay for you to break laws against us. But we're not allowed to say, hey, we're breaking laws against you, and we just made a law that says that's okay, so you now got to deal with it. Because remember, the people killing the government is not a crime. The government killing the people is a crime. The people disobeying the government is not a crime. That is patriotism. That is honor. The government disobeying the people is a crime. That is treason, and that is the death penalty. This is America. Plain and simple. Patriotism is upholding your heart, what you believe in. If you're an American, then you uphold the Constitution. You don't obey the government, you obey the Constitution. Under no circumstances, anywhere, would any act of patriotism would be obedient to a government. That is Satanism, not patriotism. Satanism is obeying the government. If you kill somebody in the government, that is most likely patriotism. They'll say it's treason. Remember, if George Washington lost, he would have been a traitor. But he didn't lose, so he was a patriot, a founding father of a revolution of freedom. Winner, right? He won. That's what we record. Some say he really didn't exist. They needed a Spartacus. But anyways, we're winners. We won. We had an ideal, we had a belief, and we had patriots. And those patriots fought and lived alongside those who fought and died. And they won. I know right now you're like, well, then what happened? Well, that's because we, as Americans, quit being patriots. We quit fighting against the government. Every time the government disobeyed, it would have been bam, shoot them in the face, hang them hung by the neck until dead, or shoot them in the face by our firing squad. Because that is what we are. We are Americans. And if anybody doesn't like that, there's always the good old-fashioned tar and feathering. Plain and simple, we are Americans. That's what we do. So, somehow, Americans quit being Americans. And now we just have this government. We have more than 1% taxation. We have more than the 2% that we are willing to say, hey, fuck you. Here's your 2%. Now fuck off. What happened? Right? The government happened. Satan happened. And then you have all these government who keep claiming God. Like, oh, you just got to work. Well, guess what, government? You work for minimum wage. All right? You make minimum wage. You don't get health care. You don't get nothing. All right? Plain and simple. You get 1% taxes. If you can't handle it on 1%, then too bad. It just ain't going to work. Let it crash and burn. A government road takes 2 years to build. Goes $100 million over budget. A private road, wider, longer, better, 3 months to build. Build under budget. Maintain better. Plain and simple, government is wrong. Pay everyone in the government minimum wage. President, every politician.